reading is like a slope, and the older you get, the harder it is to develop an interest in language. More so because as children grow up in middle school, they develop their own likes. They want to do things that they like to do. They develop minds of their own. So as much as you can, when they're younger, it's easier to mold them. It's
Right.
easier to understand what you can do as a parent.
Hello and welcome to the India Parenting Show. Today we have with us Bindu Agarwal. She is the founder of the Reading Curve. Let's hear from her about how she's blended her various interests in psychology, English, and history to bring about the Reading Curve. And the Reading Curve, the focus of which is to inculcate the joy of reading in kids, which is so important in these times. Welcome, Bindu. Tell us about
Thank you so much, Nirali. Thank you so much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, to be, and share a lot of the experiences that I have sort of gathered through the years in my journey, not only through reading, discovering what reading is all about, but also discovering so many beautiful books that I can bring to my students. So I'm actually going to start with, how this began for me.
Yes, please.
And, and I'm going to actually go back to the story of the Pied Piper. Because, and I keep going back to the Pied Piper because I think the Pied Piper's pull to be able to play his flute and get all the kids to him,
right,
is a very important role.
Yes.
And there are lessons for teachers and for parents, and everybody, in fact, to be that Pied Piper, find that Pied Piper when times are tough. Of course, the story has very different connotations, but I think it's important to keep playing our flute to get kids excited about reading.
Yes, very nice.
For me, how it happened was...
Famous analogy. Yes, please tell us.
Yes, and how that actually happened for me, that in my growing years, my parents were the Pied Pipers. My mum, dad was, he's an engineer from London, and he did his mechanical engineer, but he is hugely fond of history. Okay. And in fact, we call him at home, a walking encyclopedia. He can pretty much tell you, what was happening in the world at any point of time. So he's a great storyteller. If you sit with him, there's never a dull moment.
Right.
Mom, again, was in English literature. She did her master's, so there was no escaping from reading anyway. Right. So all of us, I have 3 siblings. We were all immersed in a culture of reading right from, the word go. And I think that those are some of the experiences that we had. A home library. I remember we had a huge stack of Reader's Digest. We would, devour each one every month and look forward to it. So along the way, I remember reading Enid Blyton, Anne of Green Gables. There were so many wonderful books. There was Black Beauty. A lot of the classics that you see today were all, and books was all we had. I remember when I was in grade 8 or 9, I read The Day of the Jackal, which is essentially about this plot to assassinate the French president. Right. I finished the book and I jumped onto my bicycle to go to the video parlor. In those days, we used to have video parlors, which used to lend you. Yes, no Netflix, right? So I got onto my bicycle and I said, I'm going to get the movie because I've just visualized this book in my head so much that I have to see it. Yeah. And those are some of the memorable experiences that I with. So yes, absolutely. Constantly fed on a diet of everything and anything. In fact, I think I'm a compulsive reader. I need, even if I'm sitting at a doctor's place, I need something to read. And that is something that, also I try to sort of build in my students as well.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So tell me one thing, when did you start this program? When did you get into it?
So Reading Curve, I actually started, it's been over 15 years now. Actually, when the boys, I have 2 boys now, older one is almost 24, younger one's just turned 19. So the journey has been very long and rewarding, very much.
Yes.
But in my early years, when the boys were very young, they were pretty much my guinea pigs. So with my psychology background, I obviously knew and had read a lot about the development of the brain. Right. And
can you tell us more about the science of that and how you brought it into reading?
Oh, definitely. So when children are very young, and actually linguists And psychologists will tell you that the period from 0 to 8 is very, very critical for brain development. The brain actually expands very rapidly, and it expands so rapidly that you may not realize there are millions and millions of neurons in the brain, all waiting to be ignited. They're like little light bulbs, millions of them in your head here, in your brain. And
if you don't use them, they die.
Parents and teachers.
And if you don't use them, they die. So it's very important to use them.
Yes. So it's very important. It's like a muscle, right? If you don't use it, what happens to a muscle? And so if you recognize that billions and billions of neurons are, I knew the structure of the neurons and the synapses and the connections. So the idea is to fire those connections as early on in their minds and equip children with robust vocabularies and a strong interest in reading. So that was when I discovered, and the kids were very young, I said, wow, let's just do this. Let's just pump up their lives with so many stories. And actually my older one, he started reading very, very early. By 5.5, he was reading, by 5.5 to 6, he was reading Tintin, a Tintin magazine.
Wow, excellent.
I clearly remember.
Yes.
Because the reading aloud. So the reading aloud is also very important, Nirali. What that does is kids can't read themselves.
Right.
But what parents and adults in their lives definitely should do is read a lot to them. You may think that it is not very significant, but you can't see what's happening inside their brains, right? So therefore, it's like the story of the bamboo tree. If you've heard of it, there was this little farmer and he's trying to grow this bamboo tree. And the first 6 months, nothing happened because you couldn't see and people told him to give up. What's the point? And suddenly when the bamboo tree shot up, it just shot up, just how? So that's exactly what happens with our children's brains. We just need to keep on stimulating them, have dinner table discussions, read to them a lot. I remember we used to put on Discovery Channel and talk about whales and elephants and talk about different kinds of
conversations around different things, right?
Yes. So essentially what is happening to the brain is that you are stimulating the brain in various ways. So it could be through a conversation, it could be through a book that you have read, it could be something that children have seen and therefore you started, it triggers off a conversation. So many different things. It could be a simple thing like being in the kitchen and discussing what's being cooked. So use those moments as teachable moments to talk and develop language.
But that's also for reading. That's also for reading. Like to have these kind of things, like kitchen and all that. All of that is like relevant to that. Like different experiences, basically, that would help in the reading also.
What I used to do is I used to make my younger one sit on a stool while I was cooking, and we used to have these. We still have these books. I can show them to you. We have horrible histories and some, these funny, really funny books. Horrible histories are essentially getting into the lives of these historical characters, but in a very fun sort of a way. There are these lovely books which have cartoons on them.
Yes.
And I remember he used to sit on a stool and one day we read about Al Capone. And Al Capone was the Italian mafia of that time in Chicago and he was He was 4th, 5th grade, I think.
Right.
And we came to a word called bootlegger. And actually I did not know what bootlegging meant. I mean, I know what bootlegging meant, but I didn't know that it originated because you literally used to put your alcohol bottles in your boots and hide them.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So that's how you end up discovering, conversations can lead to anywhere. So that's
very nice. Right. So Bindu, do you have certain books that you would like the kids to read at certain ages? Like what do you recommend?
Yes, definitely.
Recommended books?
Oh, definitely. I have like a whole lot of them. When children are very young and just developing an interest in reading, it's always a great idea to look at picture books because they can't read.
Right.
So let them look at lots of colorful pictures, let them get excited about illustrations, let them get excited about, how the story is moving. So I'm actually I have a few of these by my side, which I'm going to share with you here. And so one of them was actually, I still have all these books from my children's library. One of them I remember was Clifford the big red dog, and there was obviously this huge dog who has different experiences with this family. So just the sheer size of the dog excites children.
Right.
Then and I have many Clifford the big red dogs. Then of course something similar was Curious George. So Curious George is also this naughty little monkey who gets into trouble, and it's very fascinating because there are elements of humor which kids actually love, and the illustrations are actually very simple. There's very little text, as you can see, and there's lots to talk about when you're actually discussing a book there.
Right.
Then there's this lovely little store called Jyotsna Prakashan, somewhere in Gurgaon, in the little gullies of there. Okay. I discovered that there is this lovely store, and they actually encourage a lot of Indian writers. So you have a lot of
That's good. That's nice.
Books written by Indian authors.
Right.
And if you haven't been to Kahani Tree in Prabha Devi, then I would very highly recommend that. Sangeeta is actually a wonderful person. She will walk you through her library, and you can actually pick up lots and lots of. It's called Kahani Tree.
Kahani Tree, okay.
It's called Kahani Tree. It's a place. Yes. It's a place called Kahani Tree.
Okay.
And Sangeeta Vakil, she's got this lovely place where you can actually, it's like a treasure trove. So you'll be looking around everywhere. It's like Aladdin's cave, full of treasures.
Right.
So there are lots of these lovely books. This again is another Jyotsna Prakashan book. Then we also have there's also this very nice series of science, which actually I picked up on some of my travels there. Right. And I use these as opportunities to talk about lessons in science, or you could talk about how garbage is collected, or the food chain, or how dinosaurs were discovered. So we venture into different areas of science and geography, and it's blending an understanding, a stronger understanding of the world.
Right.
There are many more actually I can share with you. The other thing I wanted to share with you is these are readers. And so I can read, these are actually for children who are just developing reading.
At what age would you say? What age?
So, this would be like about, anywhere between 5 to 6. Okay. Somewhere around 5 when you're just learning, and it's got very simple words. Okay. The idea of initiating reading is to start with simpler words, and along with your sight words. And these are really, really great because these are graded. So you can move from level 1 to 2 to 3. You can, the stories are engaging, and they're literally at the level at which a child can read. And there's a lot of repetition because when you understand the science of the brain, a lot of students struggle because they are not reading enough and looking at words that the brain can remember.
Right.
And that's why these books are really great because you're constantly looking, which appears again and again on another page. And that's how, you end up remembering the words.
Right.
Okay, and I must tell you.
What if the kids don't? Okay, go on.
Yeah, this is a favorite book, and simply I picked it up because it's a story I read as my own, when I was a child. When I was about 6 years old, there is this boy who, something falls on him and he becomes flat, and his whole journey of Flat Stanley. So his parents put him in an envelope and send him to his aunt's place because he's flat. He can, get under doors. Yeah. It's a very interesting story. And actually it reminds me of my childhood because it's amazing how stories that you have read in your childhood, when they pop up again, they trigger those memories.
Right. So Bindu, are you saying that if they're fond of hearing stories that they will actually start reading also? Because that's something that, is it automatic? Because the thing is that sometimes the kids may love to listen to stories, but don't want to take the trouble to read. So do you think that it is an automatic transition, or do you have to do something for that?
Well, if you start a lot earlier, it becomes a lot easier. That's what I can definitely say, that if you, when children are very young, they look around, they're curious, they look at words on billboards. You can see words, pretty much you can see words everywhere. You walk down to a mall and you can see, the names of stores, the labels everywhere. They're trying to make meaning of the words and the letters that they have learned. So that's definitely much easier. So it is a natural progression. However, I would definitely also say that don't stop reading to a child. I hear many parents say, oh, but he can, she can read by herself now. I don't need to read aloud. but reading aloud is very important.
Oh, even if the child starts reading, you should read to the child.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I see.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And I also have to share with you that, actually children have vocabularies which are, their listening vocabularies are actually 2 levels higher than their speaking vocabularies, which means, Nirali, that if you have a 3rd grade student, you can read a 5th grade book to a 3rd grade student. And what that does essentially is give that child a stronger vocabulary, build connections. You're reading at a higher level naturally, so the growth is faster. So, dear parents, please don't stop reading just because you think that your child is already reading. In fact, if you read Jim Trelease's handbook, and you listen to Mem Fox. Now, Jim Trelease was an American educator who figured that classrooms where teachers did a lot of reading aloud, those kids learn to read faster. Now, that's a direct connect. Reading aloud is important.
Right.
Mem Fox, again, is another Australian author who read a lot, and she is, she's an advocate of reading aloud simply because she could see the results not only with her own children but with her students as well. So I often hear when I tell parents that you must continue to read aloud till age 10, 12. But I see a lot of resistance. But you can see the magic that happens when you read aloud. So definitely, by all means, don't stop reading aloud.
Very good tip. Very nice. Okay, so now tell me one thing. What if the parents are not into books and reading? Is that a problem?
Well, it's easier. Let me put it this way. If you have an environment at home that encourages, where children are looking at parents reading, or you have a grandfather, even if he's holding the newspaper, it's a lot easier because children copy what you do. It's, we may tell them read, but if they don't see us as adults in their lives reading, then the journey, of course, is much harder. So I'm saying, even if it's just a simple magazine, you want to show that you're reading, by all means, please do pick up a magazine, which will take you about 10 minutes. Make sure that your child sees you reading, because then you're simply not just telling your child to read, you're also demonstrating it and role modeling it. And role modeling it. Absolutely. So by all means, shorter, it's harder. I understand that in the busy lives that we lead, reading for longer periods, and especially if you're not a reader, it can be hard. But by all means, I think it's an effort, and I think it's an effort worth investing in.
Yes, I agree. The confidence level of kids who read is really amazing. So I would say that because of that, especially because of that, in this day and age, you must read, I guess. Okay, so now tell me one thing, Bindu. Because of COVID, as you know, everything's gone online, and in general, parents struggle with keeping them away from screens. How do you balance the screen time for reading and the screen and books? And what about your Kindles? Should kids read on Kindle, or should they read on printed paper? Like, what is your thought on that?
So let me answer your first question, which is that in a digital world, now digital world is a reality, and it's a challenge, because I feel the biggest enemy of the book is social media, because you're constantly taking away children from books. And you're creating, you see, it also changes the structure of the brain. You may not realize that, and I'll go back to the science of the brain, that if you actually see studies of researchers, a lot of research has been done on children who read a lot and digital brains. And you'll see that certain areas of the brain get activated when they're reading a book, and different areas of the brain are getting activated when they're on, the digital platform. Yes. And what the world of digitization has done today, it has created shorter attention spans, and you are only you're doing surface level reading. You're not reading for deep meaning. So if you read a novel, first of all, it's very hard for you to hold on to that novel for the longest time because you have such a short attention span. And in that case, I would recommend read a shorter book. So don't read such a thick book. Read a shorter book. And I feel that somewhere, I think, in this whole new world that we have, we are now beginning to recognize, it's important to achieve a balance. So don't say no to reading online, that's fine.
Right.
But also at the same time recognize that books are important. Books, you can't wish away books no matter how much.
Right. Absolutely.
Shorter books.
Yes.
Read books that interest you. So if you have a child who's not keen, well, there's something that I'm sure he must like, at least football. Get him something connected to football, or whatever it is that the child likes. So shorter, smaller text. Coming to your next question about Kindle. Now, I'm a big fan of the Kindle because I simply have no space in my house for more books. And that's a challenge. And that pretty much is a challenge with all good readers. You will face that problem at some point of time. But I think in the initial years, it is well worth the investment of buying books for your children. I often see parents saying that, oh, but I don't have a library and I don't have a home library. And what that does is you're not taking advantage of the time that is ticking by and your child is growing up. So I always ask parents and say, invest in a home library. Please take your children to a bookstore, pick up at least 1 or 2 books every week, 2 weeks that you go. Keep it coming. It's an investment well worth. Kindles, I would recommend to, many children are comfortable with Kindles, but I would say that first develop a love for books and then move on to the Kindle.
Right.
So, then you'll be able to, because there has to be an appreciation of holding the book. It's a physical experience, turning the page, looking at the illustrations, which the Kindle doesn't give you. So it's for people who are great readers, but who have also a strong, inclination for books.
Books, right. So start with books and then move on to the Kindle. Correct. That's great.
Yes. Definitely.
So Bindu, is there something more that you'd like to share on reading and some tips that you have missed perhaps for parents? Is there something more that you'd like to share?
Well, yes. Reading is like a slope, and the older you get, the harder it is to develop an interest in language. More so because as children grow up in middle school, they develop their own likes. They want to do things that they like to do. They develop minds of their own. So as much as you can, when they're younger, it's easier to mold them. It's easier to understand what you can do as a parent. Create a lot more teachable moments every day. It's a deliberate effort. Never let a day go by where you have not read to your child. Develop routines. I remember there was one parent who told me that she says, in the evening, we dim the lights a little bit, put on a reading light. I put on a scented candle. I create the environment for my child, and we read every day like this.
Nice.
And it is so wonderful.
Yeah, excellent.
It's really nice because these are memories, remember.
Yes, and the child looks forward to it, right? A routine, right? Very nice.
Yes, the child, absolutely. And the child looks forward to it, and it's a great memory. Imagine you are actually making memories as a parent. And we grow up with these memories around us, and you want to make sure that you give your child enriching memories. I mean, J.K. Rowling said that if the reason that children don't read is because they haven't found a good book. And, don't just say, oh, my child doesn't read. Find what the child likes to do. Even if it's a graphic comic book, it's fine. We grew up on Amar Chitra Kathas as well. They get over very quickly. Yes. So there are lots and lots of really, really nice books. I mean, I really love Om Bookstores had created this whole series for classics. And what I like to do is and because the actual original classics are actually so tough, but they're a very rich source of treasure to, understand characters, to develop empathy. Reading also develops empathy. And I think you live through the characters that you read. You've, that the saying that if you don't read, you only live one life. And if you read, you live through 1,000,000 lives. So,
lovely.
So I think it's really, really important that you read, different kinds of books. There's a really nice series that I actually also want to recommend for kids who are not, these are great autobiographies. These are really my favorite. I have a whole collection of these. And what this does is it helps you to dive into what was Walt Disney's life like? And if I open it, the illustrations are actually very interesting because it'll, they're like this. Okay. So they're illustrations like this.
Yes.
And it's not a very difficult, book to navigate.
Yes.
I have actually I've done this with my fourth graders, and I've done The Merchant of Venice with my fourth and fifth graders.
Wow.
Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice. So is possible.
Yes.
It is possible.
Very nice.
It is possible. Yes.
Excellent. So Bindu, it was lovely, sharing your ideas, talking to you. It was really actually wonderful. I really hope that the parents get all these tips and inculcate the joy of reading that you have, given to so many kids. So I really hope that they do that. Thank you very much, Bindu. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure, Nirali. Thank you.
Bye.
If you like our videos, do subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.